Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Taryn Swears, and I'm stoked for today's episode. I have the honor and pleasure to have the Dr. Christie Hafer. And I say these, if you guys are local in the Treasure Valley here in the Eagle, Idaho area, you guys may know her. She and her husband, Dr. J, or Dr. Jeremy, they own Purpose Driven Chiropractic, and I swear are miracle workers. So I'm excited for you guys to hear more from her and what she's got to share because I always like to bring people on that are a little bit smarter than me, but also can give you a different perspective on all things that are associated with what my podcast channel is about: nutrition, mindset, and hormones. So while my goal is to kind of dumb down the sciencey jargon as it relates to the nutrition and mindset and hormones, I want to allow Dr. Christie to share a little bit more about how we can tap into it, kind of deeper dive on the nervous system, which is way out of my jurisdiction. So she's going to be perfect for that. And she's going to talk about the vagus, not vagina. There's a story to that.
Easily mistaken.
Especially when you're reading it. And we were going back and forth on text message when we were coming up with a title for this.
Yeah, I get it.
And I read vagina. So I'm like, okay, you're going to talk about the vagina theory. Okay, super. So we're not talking about vagina. Sorry to disappoint you guys. But basically the vagus nerve, she's going to go into, what its true connection is to the gut and brain and how that results to our nervous system with healing, hormones, digestive, the whole 9 yards. But kind of a fun story because, we met here locally. We're both here in Eagle, Idaho. And if you recall, Dr. C, we met on the blue turf,
Yeah,
right? At F45 South Eagle. We were both 5:15 a.m.ers, and she was sitting there stretching, and I, you come in and you're just kind of like half asleep, right? Pulling the sleep out of your eyes. So I just kind of like mosey over to the blue turf and sit myself down. This cute blonde that's just sitting there stretching, and, nobody really wants to talk at that hour. But I felt like I was just, blurt out something. So we just kind of started to BS and became workout buddies, and come to find out that she was a chiropractor and works wonders on children. Because I think I was asking you about your work with kids because at the time I was so frustrated with, my son and just his like
focus.
attention.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? That's what we started talking about. And you're like, oh, well, funny enough, that's what I do. And that just started a lifelong friendship, but also I really got to truly see how Dr. C and their amazing chiropractors at Purpose Driven Chiropractic work with families. Had the pleasure to bring my kids in. You guys can't say enough amazing things about how they take care of their patients and just the warm, loving environment that they create. But for those of you that aren't local, I really want you to understand the kind of theory that Dr. C is going to talk about. And also, I always want you guys to walk away with something that you can actually do if something, connects and going, that's what's going on. And then, Dr. C is really good at making sure you guys have an action item to walk away with. So with that, thank you for coming
You're
on,
welcome.
Dr. C. I really appreciate it. We call you Dr. C because that's what the kids call
Easy.
you, right?
Yeah, it's easy.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Well,
totally.
thank you. I love that you had me on here, and I am going to keep it simple, but also impactful so people can start to understand concepts in the body, because I think a lot of times if we don't understand why we're doing something and we're just mindlessly going about our day, we don't put intention to it. And that's really the biggest key that we find. We can have focus and we can have time and we can try to put energy into something, but if we don't put intention into it, then we aren't going to get the results that we want. And so many of us go about our day mindlessly, and then all of a sudden somebody will catch your attention and you're like, damn, this Taryn girl looks good on social media, right? Like, she's always lifting these weights and she looks so vibrant and healthy and alive. I want to look like that, or I want to be like that. And then we don't either know why, or we don't know how to take the steps to get there. So it's always so important when there's people like you that are on, that you've done the work, and then you show people how to do the work and to show people it's possible. Because Most people think that we are victims of our circumstances, that we're victims of our genetics, that we are just here and we don't really find that intention or that purpose in our lives, and we don't know what we're capable of until we start trying, or maybe somebody else paves the way for us to say, here's what you can do. So I absolutely love watching all that you've been doing, all that you've become, and what you can show other women that you can do. So this podcast is perfect. So I'm not going to steal it with like hashtag science. Rob it from you.
But feel like you can, because I won't. I've told my listeners from the get-go, I'm going to take the sciencey part out, but I did not tell them that I was going to bring in the people that might know some of the sciencey stuff, because I do feel like that kind of just brings it full circle. And also a lot of people might be interested in the sciencey part of it, because there is some relevance to it. So that being said, you take the sciencey any direction you need.
And we will make it make sense. A lot of what chiropractors are looking at, and you just have to also know that not all chiropractors are created equal, just like not all trainers are created equal, just like not all beauticians are created equal. There's odd people in odd professions all the time. You got to look for someone that jives with you and has your same value system, and that's the biggest thing that you can look at is those values. What we like to evaluate is the body as a whole, which is why we look at the nervous system. It is something that is largely overlooked. Our brain, our central nervous system, its conductivity is something that is on all the time. It's what organizes and orchestrates all information. It's our filter, it's our lens, it's how we process our emotions, our hormones, our weightlifting, our water intake, our food. Our nervous system is in control of everything. And if we try to pull the body out into systems and just examine hormones or just examine the brain or the heart or the lung, you get it, we aren't going to get a complete picture. So we're all about supporting the body as a whole and creating balance in the system so that the things you're doing at home, the things that Taryn's advising, work better. From water to nutrition to hormones, all of those pieces of our life that we want to fall together have to work as a whole together. And it's much easier done through this balanced nervous system. So I'm going to break it down in a couple different ways so people can understand it. And we'll get to this vagus nerve because it is one of the all important encompassing nerves of our body that runs the healing. And people want to know, why aren't I healing? Why aren't I growing muscle? Why isn't this belly weight coming off? Why don't I have any energy? And if we can't understand that process, then we're going to keep, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Definition of insanity.
I was just going to say that. It's like my mind. That's why we get along so well.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. So fun. And I think that, sorry, I'm shuffling around just because the sunlight that's coming in my home office.
You guys that can't see her, it's like she's got this beautiful halo on her head. So she's like this angel.
I already started sweating. I already had to take my sweater off. I'm like in a tank top now.
Go sit outside. It's like 40 degrees.
I get excited. It really is. It's cold here in Idaho. When you're looking at your body as a whole and your nervous system, I'm going to break it down in a couple different ways. And one is understanding the modes or the lenses of our nervous system. We're always looking for balance. That's where we get results. But when we start getting out of balance is when we start to see symptoms or a consequence of health. And as you know, stress is really what gets in the way. And stress can be good and stress can be bad. It's a matter of healing and recovery. You could work your butt off in the weight room and be like, I'm seeing no results. You're not recovering from that stressor. It is a positive stress into your body, but you haven't now been able to heal those tissues that you've been interrupting and stressing for them to have taken effect. So this heal, repair, and stress response has to be balanced. So you've got your sympathetic nervous system. That is our fight or flight response. So that is the side of our nervous system that says, go. So think about it as the gas pedal. That's when you're lining up to do your workout, your heart starts pumping, the blood starts going out to your motor system, so out to your muscles and extremities. Your blood pressure's up, your heart rate's up, usually you're starting to get warm, and your senses arise. When our body is truly in sympathetic, so exercise, once again, induces sympathetic nervous system, or there's a threat there. And you can think of many, many things as a threat. Is this a real threat or is this a perceived threat? If, a deer jumps out in front of me in traffic, I'm going to slam on my brake. I want that sympathetic nervous system to work instantaneously to save my life. But If there's always something jumping on in front of me and there's always something eliciting my fight or flight response, we start getting stuck and we miss out on the healing. So things that are stressors, physical, chemical, and emotional. If we are constantly being bombarded, and sometimes it's, as you know, self-induced, and like I call it like your self-sabotage cycle. You sign up for too much. You are eating crappy food, you're thinking crappy thoughts. I know these are all things that you're addressing. We are eliciting that fight or flight response over and over again. Our healing side starts missing out. And that is part of that whole repair cycle. So sympathetic's high, parasympathetic, our resting and digesting, which our vagus nerve runs, becomes low. I was even talking today in my social media on the flu season. Let's not give flu a season. It's always here. There's viruses everywhere our body's fighting off. It's the time when stress is high, when healing is low, and things have an opportunity, we call them opportunistic, to come in and take effect on your body. And when I'm saying stress is high, we're not moving our bodies, we're eating crappy food, we're overscheduling, we're trying to keep up with the Joneses, we've got a million sporting events to go through, you get the point. Our healing side gets out of balance. Now we're pulling from this fight or flight response, healing is coming down, we are completely out of sync. Now we're expecting our body to heal and repair from exercise, from meditation, from the food we're eating, and it's over here trying to survive. It is over here saying, I'm running from a bear, it hasn't left yet, I can't possibly think about digesting my food, having proper emotions, getting hormones that are in sync. It's absolutely out of that control. So we need to build up the healing response. And I'm sure people are like, tell me how to do that, right?
You're like on the edge of their seats. What do I do?
I need to heal. We find that a lot, and we have to honor ourselves in knowing that every choice we make, adds up, and our body's keeping the score. If we all of a sudden make a shift in our lives and expect everything to fall into place, we have unrealistic expectations, and that's usually when we quit. If we can't measure the small incremental change that we have in our lives pushing towards health, and measure, I always say you've got to turn around and measure where you've gone, not where you want to be. There's going to always be a gap for where you want to be. And if that's where you're always measuring yourself to, is this person you want to become, this energy you want to have, the body you want to have, the person you want to become, there's going to be a gap, and you can't be measuring that gap. You got to turn around and look and see, wow, I stopped, responding to my children with anger. I started eating a salad for lunch instead of fast food. I kicked the soda and started drinking water. I'm up to a gallon. I started turn around and look at that, and you're going to be proud of where you've come. And that's going to continue to lower the fight or flight response and the things you're telling yourself, so healing can occur. So when you're looking at your sympathetic nervous system, because it needs to, it says my internet's unstable. Is that true?
You were spotty for a second, but I think you're back because I see your fingers ready to snap.
That sympathetic nervous system is fast. There's a lot of neurological connections there. Literally, if I'm having my spine, it is from like C2 all the way to O5. We are looking at a sympathetic nervous system, tons of attachments to move quick. Parasympathetic nervous system has one huge line, and that's our vagus nerve. There are 12 nerves that are in your brain. Vagus nerve is one of them. And there's only two actually that leave our cranial vault, and vagus nerve is one of them. Vagus means wandering, and I guess like Las Vegas. Anyway, it wanders, it leaves right here near your brainstem, and it wanders throughout all of your organs and glands to control and modulate that healing. When people talk about your gut-brain connection, they are talking about your vagus nerve. That guy's got 9 times more fibers than any other fiber in your body. It gets turned down and the tone becomes low, just like it were if you were to stop exercising. You stop lifting weights, that muscle's like, you're not using it anymore. I'm gonna tone down. Your vagus nerve does the same thing. It's gonna tone down. Now you've got low tone in your vagus nerve, high tone in your sympathetics. You know that there's an imbalance here. Start working that vagus nerve, calming that fight or flight response, and toning it up. Now, of course, I'm a chiropractor, so I'm going to tell you adjustments stimulate the vagus nerve to heal. If you find a chiropractor that's got nervous system based. They understand the brain and body. They're going to know what to do as well. Other ways to elicit your parasympathetic nervous system are relaxation, meditation, taking a bath, walking outside barefoot in the grass. It's called grounding. Anything that you can do to bring that healing side online is what you need to do. There are people that run vagus nerve releases. I don't know exactly what their profession is called, but I've had other patients come to me and say, oh, wow, I went to this practitioner and she did vagus nerve releases and she
Interesting.
stimulates something, through their body. Cool. Look for that. There's ways, if you were to Google vagus nerve, how do I heal it? How do I stimulate it and tone it up? That's going to be huge. Sleep is huge. That is the only time you heal and repair. So if you want your sympathetic nervous system to calm down and you want your parasympathetic nervous system to work, you have to rest. There are some people that, just like you'll tell them during exercise, there has to be a rest day. There has to be a rest period if you want your body to catch up. People want to work their way out of things. And often I say, you got to rest your way out of this one. You've overworked yourself. You've totally elicited fight or flight. Doing more is not going to be the answer. You need to rest over here and stimulate parasympathetic and build that vagus nerve and that tone back up so you can balance these two systems out. During the day, you shouldn't be in fight or flight, at least stuck there, nor should you be stuck in healing and repairing. That's really where the system is out of balance. And I can kind of explain that as well when you're looking at the way that the body works in totality. I'm going to draw a pyramid here with my hands.
Okay, hold on. I want to go back to, can I go back really quick? Yeah. So just because this kind of regurgitates conversations that I've been having with clients over the last couple weeks, especially those that have been working hard. They're doing all the things, right? They're eating well, they're hydrating, they're getting rest, which, when you break it down and you realize that their rest to them is going to bed at 11 and maybe getting 5-6 hours of sleep. So having you validate the fact that rest is really critical, but also managing their stress. So I talk a lot with my clients about their cortisol levels, which is the stressor hormone, right? Yep. So you could go and, tap your macros like a professional, right? And nail them every single day. Get your hydration in, you do your workout, you're doing all those things. But if you're carrying that excess cortisol with you day in, day out, so matching that kind of fight or flight constantly and not having that break, then that's where the belly fat, that's where the stubborn weight that we can't release, that fat, right? I'm not talking about weight loss because that's senseless, right? The fat loss is really what the target is for a lot of women, right? That they're coming like, I want to lose weight. Like, well, you want to lose body fat. So true that, and tying back into what you were saying, in order for us to be able to release that, you've got to get into that recovery phase. So just reiterating that meditation, grounding through barefoot, walking in the dirt or the grass. What was the other one that you mentioned?
I said baths, like Epsom salt soak baths are really great to do.
Yeah. And I'd also say journaling. I talked to a client the other day, in fact, that at the end of the day, I'm also going to recommend a digital detox. I think a lot of people don't realize the impact that our phones have on our stress, right? We think that it's a release point at the end of the night. We want to just sit on the couch and just scroll senselessly through our phones, right? And we're going to social media, and you know what? You may love or not love what happens to cross your feed, right? Or you look at an email before you go to bed, and then what? That's the last thing that you see before you go to bed. So you've got a boss, or you have a client, or you have somebody that sends an email that is less than enjoyable to read at the end of the night. That's the last thing that your body holds on to that is still in that constant chaos internally, right? So that's the fight or flight still triggered, and your body can't necessarily relax. So journaling, which kind of pairs with the digital detox I recommend, and I think will complement what you're recommending, that for those that can't necessarily get in to have this assisted adjustment with your practice, or finding someone like you, but digitally detoxing, like putting your phone away at least an hour before bedtime. And I actually even recommend that people put their phones out of their room. So I know this takes a little bit of a left turn, but I'm good at that. But having your phone out of your room and not allowing it to be your alarm clock, not allowing it to be right next to your head. A lot of people put it on their nightstand. And, which you got kids, I understand that you want to have it nearby, but what if you moved it into around the corner so you could still hear your phone if it has to be your alarm clock, or go to the drugstore and get a basic one. I got one for like $10 from Amazon. So, but would you agree that having that stimulation from the phone, that constant, because it's constantly
Mhm.
active, whether you have it on sleep mode or not, right?
Absolutely. And really, when you're looking at it's an emotional stressor. It's actually three. It's physical, chemical, and emotional. If we don't think that there's energy in this world that's stimulating us that we can't see, then you're kind of crazy. UV lights, X-rays, there's microwaves and our cell phone waves. They're stimulating our body. It is an unseen energy that we don't realize is stimulating us. That's a chemical stressor to our body. An emotional stressor. It's like you're opening up more tabs on your computer, just clicking them open and expecting the computer to run the same. It's not.
Right.
There's too much happening inside of your brain, and whether or not you are in a stressful event, you're arguing right now with your spouse, or you're seeing something online that you didn't like, dang it, Biden. That is the same. If you're in it or you're thinking about it, it is the same physiological response inside of your body. Your brain sees a threat and it is responding appropriately. It is a natural physiological response for your brain to respond as a stressor, as a threat that's there. But now you've taken away from your healing response. If you remember, those two things are out of proportion. So the more you can do to stimulate parasympathetic, the better rest you're going to get. Because if your sympathetic nervous system is still on in any degree, you are robbing your body of the healing capacity. These two systems are out of sync. You're not fully rested. Your motor system should shut off at night. How many people are restless sleepers? That's a sign the sympathetic nervous system is on. You should be immobilized. You should be literally full deep rest to get to the full healing that you need.
Thank you for saying that. I love that there's three components to it, just because it's not just like the emotional piece that our, phones give us, whether a feel good emotion or a frustration or an anger or a sad or, any emotion. We don't realize that we carry that. And we also can carry that well into the night, even if you do, shut it off an hour ahead of time. So, finding ways to have that release point, and maybe journaling or finding that meditative practice that allows you to, bring that imbalance back up. So carry on. I know you're going to talk about you're visualizing for
Oh, yeah,
everybody the
yeah.
pyramid.
And I was just going to play off of that too. When you're meditating and you're journaling, you're shutting a few of those tabs on the computer to get that out of your brain. To shut that door, shut that window down, and get a little bit more intentional about your life. One of the things I was going to say with my little pyramid, and of course they're bigger on the bottom, the most amount of energy your body's going to pour into is your basics: eating, pooping, sleeping. You have to do those things well before you can expect anything else to go well. Those three things have to happen. And there are people just like Taryn that are there to help you with those things. Now, when we've got that basic system in the body, I want you to almost even think about it like when your baby was born. That's all you wanted them to do. That was the most basic functions. You wanted them to eat, you wanted them to poop, and you wanted them to sleep. When that was going well, the next system to develop, which is a more complex one, it's a little bit smaller, doesn't take as much energy, is our motor system. So that's movement, that's muscles, it's our sense of balance, it's our joints, it's all of that. Once again, there's experts that are there to help you move your body well. But if this isn't going well and you're just jumping here to expect your motor system to be moving well, then once again, it's an unrealistic expectation. Go here, move here. And this motor system actually is what drives your brain. So this is the peak of my little pyramid that I'm making. The way you think through a process, the way you're able to handle relationships, compassion, emotions, pre-plan, goal set, all of those things. We call it your executive function. For that to be able to operate well, you have to float up in this nice trajectory. Stress is going to steal our energy for that. We aren't going to have a nice, beautiful flow. And what happens when we didn't poop, we didn't sleep well, we don't feel well, we don't move well? That exercise that day, you're like, oh man, that was a crappy workout. I feel like junk. And then you get up to your brain, you're like, you're not thinking well, you don't have the energy, there's brain fog, there's fatigue. And once again, we've just set up this system to, I'm going to call it fail, but we just didn't set ourselves up for success. We get a good night's sleep. We pooped in that morning, right? We've eaten something really, really great and wonderful to feed and fuel our body. Now we're going to move well. And that movement is actually what drives the brain. Those motor skills our children learned, we knew when those were on track, their brain was on track, because that actually is what charges our brain's batteries. Our muscles have electricity in them. When we're bending and moving around and we're exercising, that is replenishing and charging our brain's batteries. And now our brain feels on point, it's sharp, it knows what to say, it knows what to do, it knows how to solve problems, it knows how to be balanced. And that's really where we win, is when we are serving our purpose in life. When we are our very best selves and we can think clearly and to be able to do what God's put us here to do, that's when the world wins, really. That's when everybody is winning, and that's what makes the world go around.
Oh, I love that you ended with that. Well, not ended, but I love that you kind of brought that full circle, because I feel like everybody wants to give back in a good way. Everybody wants to be the best of their best. They want to perform best at their job or in their business. They want to be the best parent. They want to be the strongest. They want to maybe not be the fittest, but they want to be the healthiest version of themselves.
Yeah.
But as you said at the beginning of the episode here, is that a lot of us kind of just, go, well, I'm dealt these cards, and that was something that my dad always had, and it would just piss me off. He's like, well, these are the cards I'm dealt, with high blood pressure, pre-diabetic, all these things where I knew, and I was frustrated. I'm like, that's not how you have to live. Like, you aren't necessarily dealt these cards for the rest of your life. You can you can sit there and feel sorry for yourself and say
how you play those cards.
Yeah, and how you play. I mean, be a poker player, like take some risk, but do something about it. So, if you share so much value, and you talked about this season that we tend to give the cold and flu. So can you share how people can find you, Dr. Christie? Like, how can they, even if they're not local, which if you guys are local, go in and take a visit with Dr. Christie and her staff, Purpose Driven Chiropractic. But how can people find you if they want to? Because you've got so much knowledge and information that's on your website, but you share so many great things through your social feeds too. So how can people get in touch with you?
We are on social media. That is a great place to find us. And we like to have some like entertainment as well. So you'll find that. Edutainment. There you go.
Yes.
You're trying to educate and entertain at the same time to give people that value so they can start to understand that. So we're on Instagram, Purpose Driven Chiropractic, and then also Facebook to a lesser extent, but I know things get funneled into there. If you go to our website, purposedrivenchiro.com, there is an educational resource on there. So there's tons of videos that I've done. There's also research in there. That Dr. Heidi Horvick is, one of these founders in chiropractic research. So people that love to hear about the research in what chiropractic is doing, that's a very cool place that you can go. She was the one that hooked people up to electrodes to figure out what's changing in the body when you get an adjustment. And they found it's only the brain. You think you're going to the chiropractor, well, like my little back hurts, are going to crack it. That might not necessarily be where you need it. If you've got somebody that's evaluating things appropriately, and when you actually look at the big picture, it's changing that brain. It's actually helping that prefrontal cortex, like we talked about, combat the fight or flight response and go back to balance so it can heal and repair like it's supposed to. Our bodies are designed to be healthy, self-heal, self-regulate. We have to put it in a place to do that. And that's where our parasympathetic nervous system lives. The one that's, we call it the lid to our brain. So when your lid is on tight, that's when you feel safe and secure. You can make great decisions. You have tons of energy. That's like that peak of the pyramid, is everything's running well. As stress comes underway, we start disengaging our prefrontal cortex. Our amygdala, the fight or flight center, is taking over. It makes us impulsive, reactive, all of the things that I talked about earlier with the fight or flight response. And now we're not our best self. And what will end up happening over time is all we're doing is eliciting fight or flight. We start living with a loose lid. We start losing the energy like we were talking about. And eventually your body says, I'm done, crash. And that's actually when the hind part of your vagus nerve works. That's the one that is working when you're sick, saying, dude, stop moving, stop eating, just lay here and be still. I need to heal and repair. Quit trying to run the motor system, quit trying to run your brain. I'm down here and crash. And there's a lot of people that only go from crash to fight or flight, crash to fight or flight, and they need that parasympathetic activity and that prefrontal cortex. They need their lid on in order to continue to achieve. I hadn't really heard of many people doing that, but until I started hearing the word anxiety and depression or bipolar, manic depressive. That's what you're doing. You're going between crash, fight or flight, crash, fight or flight. You do have to climb back up this ladder before the lid's going to come back on. But to understand that process is really key. And the more you can do to stimulate that parasympathetic and that, put that lid on, you're going to not only be able to handle more stress, your perception of stress will be a lot different as well.
Well, and I think a lot has to do, like, ties in nutritionally too, because I talk a lot about crash and crave, right? So you go through these cycles and you're staying right in there below, and that constant crash, crave, you have these heavy carb, unfulfilling foods that are not energy inducing foods, that I like to say. So you're not really giving your brain the opportunity to truly be able to take that energy source, apply it, shuttle it to where it needs to go in the body, and then go, okay, you know what? I've done what I need to do, and now I can close that lid. I can actually hit this rest period because that's the next thing on the list to do, right? Like, that's your body's innate ability is to do that, but we don't allow it because we have so many, chemical and other, emotional factors that are influenced that don't allow us to do that, and doing exactly what you're referencing there. And you've got such better visual with your hands. So if you guys are watching this on YouTube, you'll be able to see what I mean. But, that's really what I think why we clicked so well when we first met, because you guys truly approach things from a holistic perspective, right? Like, every patient that comes in isn't met with the same treatment. Every patient is given their own scan and evaluated, and you sit down and you truly get to know what their needs are, because the patient's coming in maybe not knowing what their needs are, but knows what they want the outcome to be, right? And so I love that you guys sit down and meet them on an individual basis. And I truly feel like nutrition needs to be mapped out that way as well. We're all trying to chase, the same end result. We want to be our healthiest self, right? But it's not just one dialect that's going to get us there. It's not just hitting your macros. It's not just crushing your workouts. It's not just this or that. Like, there's so many different components, which I think get overwhelming for people. But when they understand there's a holistic nature to it, and that everybody is different and everybody has to approach and nourish, those things that are unfulfilled or are not balanced. So you've got this total disruption internally that, maybe you're like doing 3/4 of the things, but that fourth pillar, with your vagus system is starting to just kind of implode a little bit. So being able to nourish that. So question for you then, before we wrap up, Dr. C, for those that aren't local and aren't able to come in and see you, because you guys see children, babies, right, all the way up to adults, pregnant, pre and post. I love that you do serve moms pre and post natal, which I think is critical. I felt very fortunate that I learned a lot about chiropractic care with my third and fourth back in Seattle. I had a fantastic chiropractor, which I shared a lot with you about his practice, Dr. Nathan Clem. He's incredible. But a lot of people don't really think about chiropractic care from a holistic perspective. So what should people look for that aren't able to come in and see you, that want to find a practice very much like yours? Like, you're saying everything that they need. What could they look for when they're searching for somebody?
That is a great question. There is a data bank of practitioners that have the same training that I do. It's called PX, the Pediatric Experience, and just like literally a P and an X. There's a directory in there if you look that up. And you can look next to the pros. They're the ones that have really taken a deep dive neurologically. They're also, it's called the Insight Scanner, and that's what we're using to objectively evaluate the nervous system. When you're saying every single person comes in for individualized care, it's because we can evaluate their nervous system. Are they stuck in fight or flight? Are they stuck in healing? Is their body in crash mode? What kind of support do they need? There are practitioners that run those scans, and you'd have to ask them, do you run scans? And if they do, it's called the Insight subluxation station, you're going to know that that chiropractor is well trained in the nervous system when they're able to sit down and take that whole body approach with you. So probably looking online, asking those questions when you call in. I feel like we've got some assistants in our office that their second job is finding other people chiropractors, because they do say, I need someone, out in LA for my daughter who has this XYZ condition, and they're Google searching for people, because we do want everyone to be their best, and we want to find chiropractors that are trained to do this. So when you come out of school, you're given very basic tools in a toolbox to take care of very basic things, and it's really that advanced training and knowledge and desire to understand more. When you see that advanced training, you're going to know that that person is honing in on the nervous system. If they've got pain, PI, headaches, and things like that on their website, they're probably more or less looking for ways to cover up symptoms rather than support the body as a whole.
So again, treat it from a holistic perspective, right? Not just the individual, hey, we're going to go snap your back and your neck and voila, out the door you go.
Yes.
There's a little bit more kind of nourishing and love that goes into, and not to say that other chiropractors don't, but that's just what I really feel like sets you guys aside. And just with my own personal experience, bringing my children in and being in there in the office myself and getting to know you guys. So I can attest to that. So thank you. You shared so much, which I always like to, again, bring on the people that are smarter than me. So, other people can go, okay, so Taryn may cover this. And then, being able to level up a little bit with the sciencey jargon, never hurt anyone here and there. So Dr. C, thank you. I really appreciate
Absolutely.
it. It's been fun. I always have a blast with you, but I look forward to hopefully running into you in town, which I know I will here soon. But thanks for being a guest here on Taryn Swears. I really appreciate it.
You got it. I appreciate you so much.
All right, girlfriend. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.